Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Manitoba Start is the leading provider of career services to newcomers in the province of Manitoba and connects businesses to a world-class workforce. I would like to welcome you all to this Labor Market Connection webinar, a series of live broadcasted events designed to assist you in entering the Manitoba labor market. To begin, Manitoba Start operates from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and homeland of Métis people. We acknowledge that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 41st Nation. Acknowledging this truth is important, yet only a small part in cultivating strong relationships with Indigenous communities. Today's webinar is focusing on the Northern Manitoba Sector Council. My name is Edda Can. I am Labor Market Connections Coordinator here at Manitoba Start, and I will be your host for today's webinar.
Bonjour tout le monde, je suis Rabha Mazer. Je travaille pour Manitoba Start en tant que traductrice en français. Et je suis ici pour vous aider avec toutes vos questions. Merci et bienvenue encore à ce webinaire.
Given the large number of participants who joined this webinar, we have muted your microphone to allow for better clarity and less interference. Before we begin, I will be going over a couple of housekeeping items. You can use the raised hand feature to indicate that you have a question or comment. To do this, you can click on the Participants button in the meeting controls, find the raised hand icon next to your name, and click on it. This will notify us that we have a raised hand. Teams webinars provide a Q&A feature that allows attendees to ask questions specifically in the Q&A panel. To access this, click on the More Options, 3 dots button in the meeting controls and select Q&A. You can then type your question in the Q&A panel. Before I introduce our presenter for today, I would like to run a few polls to get to know you better. So the first poll asks, are you registered with Manitoba Start? Yes or no? I will give you a moment to answer. %90 said yes and 10% said no. On our second poll today, do you need help with a resume, cover letter, or interview preparation? Yes or no? I will give you a moment to answer. %67 said yes and 33% said no. On our third poll today, where are you joining us from today? Northern Manitoba, Southern Manitoba, Winnipeg, outside of Canada? I'll give you a moment to answer. %19 said Northern Manitoba and 81% said Winnipeg. On our last poll for today, what is your reason for attending this webinar? Are you an internationally educated professional, settlement worker, career coach, or other? Again, I will give you a moment to answer. "69% said internationally educated professional, 23% said career coach, and 8% said other. Thank you everyone for participating in the polls. Today's webinar is with the Northern Manitoba Sector Council. The Northern Manitoba Sector Council is a not-for-profit corporation representing the region's major employers in the mining, forestry, energy, transportation, and health sectors. It was developed 2007 in response to Northern employers' expressed interests and challenges in the recruitment, training, and retention of Northern and Aboriginal people for Northern employment opportunities. So please welcome Glenn and Ellison from Northern Manitoba Sector Council. Over to you.
Thanks, Edna, for that introduction. I also want to thank Manitoba Start for this opportunity to talk about Northern opportunities, and as well Deanna England for helping us set all this up and the communication back to the South about opportunities in the North. Just a brief introduction to where we are. So we have offices in Nepal, Flin Flon, Thompson. In Nepal, we have Terry Kandichuk, who's our Indigenous liaison. And then I'll introduce Alison Eichert, who's a project coordinator at Flin Flon. Alison.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'll just go over a little bit about myself. So I'm situated up here in Flin Flon, Manitoba. So it's about an 8-hour drive north of Winnipeg. I was born and raised here. I did spend 12 hours out west in Alberta, 12 hours, 12 years out west in Calgary, Alberta. I left to go out that way about 1996, and I returned back home to Flin Flon in 2008. My background was mainly in financial, so investments and banking, admin work, all those kinds of things. In 2020, I had the opportunity to go work for Hudbay Minerals, and we are actually a mining town. Hudbay Minerals was the main employment here in Flin Flon. My goodness, that's probably what originated in Flin Flon, was the mine. So I had the opportunity to go work in industry for a couple of years. 2020 to about 2022 was a complete change for myself because I always sat behind a desk for most of my career. So I went in as a laborer in Bull Gang and into our zinc plant, and ended up being an operator in what's called a feed prep plant. So it was a great opportunity. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a huge learning curve because it's industry. It really challenged me in many ways. After that was done, our operations actually shut down here in Flin Flon after many years of operation and moved to Snow Lake, which isn't too far from here. I then came to work for the Sector Council. An opportunity was brought to me. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years, working up here in Flin Flon, traveling between here. I do a lot of work in the PAW as well. I help out Terry, and I thoroughly enjoy it. We work with many different people from many different backgrounds. There's huge opportunity up here in the north, especially with the mines and forestry, railway. There's a lot of trades that are in desperate need up here in the north, and I think sometimes we get forgotten about up here. Beautiful part of the province. We've really sectored into tourism since the mine has moved operations. So we have beautiful summers, lots of fishing, camping. We have a lot of hiking, snowshoeing, boating, you name it, we do it up here. A lot of opportunities. So that's just a little bit about myself, and I'll turn it over to Glenn now.
Okay, thanks, Allison. And then in the Thompson offices, we have Kunal Mahajan, and he's our financial manager, Caleb Ross, project coordinator, sorry. So me, my story is similar. Um, we we had a family of four living in central Manitoba, and in 1967, our family moved to Thompson, and it was life changing for our family. Uh, we've never owned a house until we moved to Thompson. A month after we were here, um, we were able to purchase a house because the money my dad was making. Also, my mom got a job. She was a letter carrier. Our lives changed moving north. A lot of that isn't explained enough. And then my life story was I worked as a miner to start off with, and then within 2 years they had an education leave program, and went back to university. Stayed with the company Valet for 32 years, but in that time, the money they spent on me for training and other opportunities is basically why we're here talking about the North. So as we go through, um, we talk about the four pillars of the sector council. A lot of what we do is workforce development. So we're looking for opportunities for our board members here, which is Valet. I have to go back here. Valet, Hudbay, Spruce Products, NRHA, Craft Paper, Louisiana Pacific, Arctic Gateway, and Hydro. So that's the board that I represent. I get a lot of my direction from them on what their needs are. And a lot of it is they need people. They need professional people, and I'll dive into that a bit. And when we're talking about northern Manitoba, this map isn't exact, but when you look at hydro covers a vast area, and they have operations all over. They have the dams up in northern Manitoba. The other one that Northern NRHA is always looking for people, and they're in Thompson, Flin Flon, and Nepaw. Valley Mines is out of Thompson, and that's the major mine out of Thompson. Hudbay Mine is out of Flin Flon. Ellison talked a bit about it. They also have operation in Snow Lake, and they're looking at other opportunities. Arctic Gateway is the rail line, and a lot of you have heard about all the work that's being done for the rail line up to Churchill. And they're also looking at opportunities for the Port of Churchill and expansion. Canadian Craft Paper out of the Paw is they produce the paper and pulp and paper, and huge opportunities there. And then we have Louisiana Pacific and Spruce Products out of Swan River. So here's the link to Hudbay Minerals. They're looking for professional people, laborers. Their operation is in Snow Lake, which is a remote camp. So you would be working 7 days a week and 7 off. And it would be camp life, but for those of you living in other areas of the southern Manitoba, this is a huge opportunity to make good money, and you could still live in where you are right now. So, and that if you're looking at the opportunities there, I have their link here to go on and check what jobs they're offering.
Glenn, we can't
You need-
see your
Yeah.
screen.
Okay. How about now?
Yep, that's great. You're good, Glenn.
Okay. Yeah, so Arctic Gateway, they have operations in Nepaw, Thompson, and Churchill. They're and it's something to watch out because the opportunities there is in both the Paw and Thompson, but also keep an eye on the Port of Churchill, and they're fixing the rail line. They're looking at opportunities to increase the ships going out, which would create more jobs, and that is happening as we speak. Valet, the company that I work for, and it was one of the better companies that I've ever worked for, and lots of opportunity. This is their link to check out their jobs, and I recommend doing it. They're at Thompson. The Northern Regional Health, so they're always looking for people, and I recommend as well checking out their links. And there's huge opportunity with Northern Health to get a job quick. And they offer training and supports. Craft paper to the paw. Looking for professional people, laborers. And the Paw region, Allison talked a bit about Flin Flon, and the Paw is probably about 150 kilometers away. Clear Lake is there, and it's a beautiful spot that a lot of people don't talk enough about it. Spruce products out of Swan River, another opportunity. Looking for people, but maybe not as much as the other industries, but it's worth checking out, as well as LP. And Swan River is a really nice community, and it's probably it is the most southern community out of the north, and huge opportunity in Swan River. Hydro always looking for people, and they're all over the north, and I recommend checking out their trades. There's lots of opportunity. My son is involved in their program with the electrical apprenticeship. Lots of opportunities all over the north with their mechanical, electrical, and their lineman training. And again, check out their site. So when we talk about the bigger industries, sometimes it's not easy to get, you apply and then you get in. But the other part of living in the north is you can tie yourself into the outgrowth employment, which supports the bigger industry. So there's lots of transport jobs available, the class 1 driving, and you might not have this opportunity in the south because you need your class 1. But the difference is, if you come north, there's always opportunity to tie yourself in with training and funding supports. Construction, lots of construction going on all over the north. If we talk about Norrie House, they just built a hospital, and they have other future projects. The mechanical, it's the same thing. Tons of opportunities with mechanical, and you're not just you have to have a mechanical. If you come to the north, there's a better chance of getting involved in a program that'll help you get into mechanical. Tons of jobs in administration with NRHA and across the board. Everyone in the north is looking for administration support. And then owning your own business. There's opportunity to tie yourself with funding, with CDF and other opportunities that come up. if you have a plan and you can do it, it's probably easier to start something in the north than in the south. So the biggest needs in the north is trades. They're either, there's level 1, 2, 3, and 4 in most trades. They're hiring at level 2s, most of the industry. There is lots of opportunity to get yourself into a red seal trades living in the north. The competition isn't as heightened as if you go into the south. Laborers, everyone's looking for laborers, so you can come in as a laborer and then work a few years, and you might be able to get into a trade in the north faster than you would in the south. Administration jobs, which lead into other opportunities once you get yourself established and you do, with in life, if you have the initiative in the north with initiative and retention of a job, you have a higher opportunity in the north. You're not competing at the level you are in the south. And I'll say that numerous times of anytime you move into the north, the chances of enhancement in whatever you're doing is there because of the retention and people moving. So professional engineers, geologists, power engineers are all required, and every industry is looking for it. But also the opportunity to get yourself into these, like starting with it might be a starter course at UCN when you're working full time and taking something at night, and then leading into another opportunity. And which talks about workforce opportunity in the north, and it's completely different in the north compared to the south. I talked about my career and starting as a miner, getting the opportunity to go back to school, which you wouldn't see in a southern industry as much. But when you get these opportunities, and the north offers more opportunities, which I would say your career growth is going to be faster in the north. And when I talk about engineering, when I worked for Valet, the recruitment strategy when I first started was you try to get an engineer and you try to have them for about 8 years. That's changed, so now that when we get an engineer, it's basically 4 years, and we would lose them to the south. But the difference is when you come north, you're gonna be right into the job, and you're gonna be learning more, and your opportunities are created. And I always said with someone that was an engineer in one of the northern industries, usually if you look on LinkedIn now is a president in another country or another company because of the experience they've received in the north. Abundant of job opportunities, I've talked a bit about that, but if you go on any of these sites, you're going to see that they're all looking for people. The attraction and retention benefits are better in the north, and that's their selling point to get people is the attraction and retention. And if you go on there and if you're doing a job application and an interview, you ask that, and it is completely different than the south. Train to employment projects, and I'll talk a bit more about that, is what we do, but there's lots of different offerings of how do you get yourself into a different trade. If you're coming from entry level, how do you progress? And in the north, that's just the progression, and we're always trying to produce people into the next level. And obviously, if you check out wages in the north, the wages are a lot better. I mean, the opportunity to create, even as a labor I think in Valet is like $36, $37 an hour.
Also, too, when you're looking at a lot of professional careers, I just have been reading over a couple of questions here on the sides. Because you're in the north, a lot of the admin jobs or professional jobs also pay what's called a Northern Living Allowance on top of your wage. I know when I worked for the financial industry up here, I made my wage of, say, $65,000 a year, but then I also got topped up approximately $6,000 a year on top of that for what's called like a Northern Living Allowance or a Remote Living Allowance. Our hospital, I believe, pays that. Another question that I see on here is a lot of people that have just graduated from school, they're new professionals, it's sometimes hard to get work because you're new and you don't have the experience. Don't let that discourage you with a lot of the mining companies, because what you have to understand is being up here in the north, a lot of our kids that graduate school, they leave here, they go to school, they don't come back. So, Hud Bay Minerals is a prime example. They would be looking for different professions that aren't necessarily, yes, they relate to the mining industry, but they're office jobs. We don't have the qualified people up here in the north to fill those positions. So don't ever be discouraged to look at places like Vail, Canadian Craft Paper, Hud Bay Minerals, the NRHA, anybody that's really on our board, because many times those jobs are desperately in need as well, not just trades. Another quick question that I had about somebody looking at a chef or baking career. The camps up here, like we said, Hud Bay Minerals has a camp. They're always looking for chefs and so on and so forth. And you can usually find those job postings on Indeed. I've seen them posted on there a lot. So, yeah, that's all I had to say. I'll just turn that back over to Glenn.
Okay, thanks for that, Elson. And also, the chef, that's a good question that we didn't really touch on is
Mhm.
in Thompson right now, they don't have, they have very minimal catering. So huge opportunity to open your own business. We can't, we struggle to have catering for large functions. So, that's the things I wish we had more time to talk about the opportunities, but I wish I could see those questions. I just don't want to
Oh,
disrupt my screen here,
yeah.
and we'll get into the questions after, but all great questions, because the opportunity is there. And when we talked about, Allison touched about how beautiful the north is, and in each region, the Flin Flon region has a different view than the Paw area to the Thompson area. The one picture I did have on the front, but you didn't see, was the falls around Thompson, and the different look of the environment. So the other part that living in the north is, you don't have the hustle and bustle of the city life where, I had three kids that were doing numerous activities in Thompson, but if you're in the city, it's a lot different. Your travel time and getting your kids to different things that they're involved in is completely different in the north. If you're in a community, um, you're there in 5 minutes, and that matters when you have your kids at the certain ages. Um, the multicultural thing that I didn't really touch on when I was talking about Thompson, like, you got to understand, Thompson was built overnight, and from 1956, when they started the operation and building and stuff. But my life in Thompson was every nation was represented, because they were recruiting people out of Montreal and Toronto. Anyone that landed were trying to get them up north into, Thompson, Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, Flin Flon, Nepaw. So we grew up, and it is that part that's not explained enough of, the multicultural part of the North, and the North was built on that, and not explained enough to if you come north, you'll see the different the different centers that are established, and the different the groups that are there.
I just see another question here. Can we talk more about the 7 on, 7 off, somebody who's situated in the north? So that
Sure.
would be Hudbay Minerals right now, who has moved their operations from Flin Flon to Snow Lake. Again, I don't know if you're familiar, but Snow Lake would be like between Flin Flon and Thompson. So what they are doing is they're running a camp 7 on, 7 off. So you drive yourself to work. I believe they get an allowance of some sort for travel. Don't ask me what that is. I'm not completely familiar with how much that is. But you have your own room, they feed you, and you go to work, you work 12-hour shifts. So you either go and you work 7 12-hour nights, and then the next time you go back, you get 7 off, and then you go back and you work 7 12-hour days. Glenn might know a little bit more. Glenn, I'll
Yeah, so and that's, you know, Snow Lake operation. There's other opportunities like that. When we talk about construction, there's Smook out of Thompson, and they do the same thing. There's other contractors that offer the camp life.
yeah.
So the opportunity is there, and that's not explained enough as well. Of if you could still live in Winnipeg or wherever you're at in southern, southern Manitoba, um, that those opportunities are there.
Yeah, you just have to
To
drive.
Yeah, and it's all set up to
Hmm.
to work in the north to and it's they try to accommodate the employees the best way they can and you know in Snow Lake they've been there for the 2 years for the and 2 or 3 years I think, right, Allison, for the camp, so they
Yeah,
strive at
yeah.
making the life in camp better, and they're doing everything they can to make it better, and it's that part of the retention.
Hmm.
But there's like there's other places you can go in northern Manitoba. The one place that's to keep an eye out for is Alamos Gold, that will be working out of Lynn Lake, Manitoba, which is about 3 hours north of Thompson, and that's a mine that could be starting building in the next few months or to the new
Hmm.
year.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on up here in the north. Like another thing I didn't mention, and I really can't get too much into it, but we live on a border town. Flin Flon is a border town with Saskatchewan. So literally I can get in my car outside and drive a kilometer and I'm on the Saskatchewan side. There's a lot going on up here in the north. We've got Hudbay, like in Flin Flon area. We've got a mine on the Saskatchewan side starting up. We've got Calinex, which is on the Manitoba side. Like there is a lot of opportunities. I had another question here regarding IT project management. Admin roles, construction, mining, contract administrators. I have seen jobs posted through Hudbay looking for professional people that have experience with contract. Like Hudbay itself is always looking at different opportunities outside of Snow Lake, I'm sure. A lot of drilling going on. There are also our old mine site here. Um, they're looking at milling out all the tailings from years gone by. So I hear rumors that, they may start the mill up here again to process those. But definitely, look at Hudbay if you're a professional and you're looking at positions like contract, IT, things like that. Keep an eye on their website because Hudbay not only, they have a lot going on, and I have seen a lot of jobs like that posted. We are always looking outside the box because, as I mentioned, we don't have a big pool of professional people here in the north. Unfortunately, the youth don't always stay. They head out to university, and so yeah, keep your eye on that if you are a professional. I hope that helps.
So just a quick understanding of the completed projects we did. So we've ran the point program with Valet. So that's intakes of trained to employment. So if you don't have experience in the industry, and that's what's happened in the north for even the labor jobs is we set up programs to help people get an intro into the industry. And it starts with work readiness to a bit of skill and then into a placement with the company. So as you see this, we have, you know, we're going to be doing one with Hud Bay in the near future and one with Craft Paper that Allison will be running. So that's a bit of what we do. And we just did an intro to mechanical. And this is just ways of getting into different different trades or even into industry that you won't see as much in the south. There is some ones, but this is what we do in the north, especially the sector council. We try to get crate feeder systems into industry. So that was one we ran with in Thompson, intro to mechanical. Try to get people not just on the industry side, but automotive apprenticeships and stuff like that. And then we're also working with aviation for train to employment with airports, and this gets you a foot in the door, you know, and it could lead, you know, even to be a pilot or in other aspects of the industry. But in that industry, it's a lot of it. You start out with cargo, and it's like they help you get to different levels, and it could be a pilot. We did a survey assistant as well that helped try to get survey people into industry. We did the passport to industry that Allison ran to get Indigenous people from OCN into craft paper. We did women in industry, and that was focused on how could we look at getting females into industry and healthcare aid. And this is another one that's huge opportunity. We ran one in during COVID to support what was happening in COVID, but Flin Flon region needs healthcare aids. The PAW as well. So that whole NRHA, and they're even looking, and that's that part about train to employment. So they offer you the training of to get you started. You might not have experience, but if you have that initiative to do it, then that's the difference of living in the north and opportunity.
And that's our website. I just had a question regarding our Train to Employ project. So we're on social media as well. We have a Facebook page. We also have a website, the Northern Manitoba Sector Council. It's not hard to find. Any projects that we're running, I'm gearing up to do one with Canadian Craft Paper that's going to be starting in January. So again, if you follow us on either or website or social media, you're going to see what we're having. We always advertise prior when we're taking applications and so on and so forth. And that's for Flin Flon, the PAW, Thompson, all those areas. So just keep an eye on that to see what projects are coming up, Train to Employ. Another thing too, when it comes to professional, which I kind of forgot out, I get caught up with the mining industry, is the NRHA. They have a lot of opportunities. That's our Northern Regional Health Authority. They look from everything from dietary aid, security guards, admin positions. You get paid very well. I believe you get Northern Living Allowance, but check out their website as well too. So they run Flin Flon, the PAW, and Thompson. But I know up here in Flin Flon, I just know from working with them on different projects that they also are in desperate need. Like Glenn said, nurses' aides, all those positions, nurses, doctors, high demand. So just please check out all those areas and don't be discouraged if you've just finished school, because there's great opportunities up here.
And as well as you know, the housing part is problematic everywhere in the country. However, when I compare to buy a house in the south compared to what you could get in northern Manitoba. And it could be your first house. And I told that story at the start about getting a house. The opportunity to own your first house is a lot better in the north. You're not going to be paying the prices that you're seeing in the south. So, and that's another opportunity. The piece that you're hearing about the north is in the media and it's all bad. And, this is why we're coming on here to talk about northern Manitoba. I lived my whole life in northern Manitoba. Allison, but except for the year she left, it's about the quality of life you can have. And we're not, reason why we're on here is to talk about the opportunities of not just industry, but your quality of life living in the north.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't take away the cold weather. However, when I'm in Winnipeg, it's pretty similar, but we are seeing changes in the weather that is advantageous to the north that we're seeing. So
Yeah, it's +2 here in Flin Flon right now. No snow,
Yeah.
and they're actually lighting the town Christmas tree tonight. So it's going to be really odd. But I've lived in the big city. I've lived in Calgary. Like I say, I spent 12 years out west. And what I really missed about home is all the lakes and the trees, all the, just the beautiful scenery. So quality of life is, I would say it's good up here. You don't have the pollution you have everywhere else. You can buy a home. You can live in a lakefront home, for a fraction of the cost of buying a house in the city. The schools are good. There's issues everywhere, and they're getting different just because of change of time. They're everywhere. But I still feel safer walking around up here in the smaller town than I ever would in the big city. So,
And one last thing is when I talk about feeder systems is if you apply for a major industry, don't get deterred because you didn't get it. I think if you establish yourself in the north and you move up here for a certain job, you will find the other jobs. And
mhm.
it is completely different in the south in that sense. If you have that initiative and you move north, you will see better opportunities in anything you do right across the board. So
Mhm. Yeah. And up here in Flin Flon, because we are a border town with Saskatchewan, like I say, we're 8 hours north, 8-hour-ish drive north of Winnipeg, but we're a 5-hour drive away from Saskatoon. So you have to keep that in mind too. I just So I just had a remark here regarding housing. I met the woman that bought my family's former home in Flin Flon. This lady's family is from Flin Flon. She got it for an extraordinary deal, renovated it for a reasonable price, and made it a living workspace for her small business, and is really happy and doing well. So I really um, I can't say enough that the price that you pay. I know we've had people relocate here because if you're young, they just can't afford a mortgage in the city. It's insane what housing costs are right now. And they made the decision to find employment or secure employment up here in Flin Flon and move up here so that they could afford to buy their first home. So, you look at lakefront property and you can buy a really beautiful lakefront property between $200,000 and $250,000 and up. But honestly, you can't, I don't think you can really buy a home for that in Winnipeg right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but so we have a lot to offer, a lot of jobs, a lot of trades. It's a good starting point.
Thank you, Alison and Glenn, for that informative presentation. Now we will open it up to the audience. Do we have any questions? Again, please type your questions in the question panel box or raise your hand and we will unmute you so you can ask your question. We welcome both English and French questions, and we will try to get through as many as time permits.
Alors, est-ce que nous avons des questions? Encore une fois, veuillez taper vos questions sur le panneau de questions et réponses ou lever la main et nous réactiverons votre micro pour poser votre question. Nous essaierons d'en traiter autant que le temps le permettra.
So we have a raised hand. I'm going to unmute you, Shahid. Shahid, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. You are probably self-muted too. I'll come back to him. Jean Dedu, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question. He's not here, I suppose. Okay, I'm going to try one more person. Michael, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question.
Okay, so thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Good. So I think I have about 3 questions that I'm going to ask this morning. So my first question goes like this. I completed the University of Winnipeg PACE program for a postgraduate degree in advanced business management. I completed just last September, right? And I've been applying for quite a tons of jobs here in the South, but I'm not getting any kind of response. So my question is, my background is in accounting, finance, and general administration, right? I'm looking at doing a certification either in payroll and then in the CPA, but I see that the employers here are not giving me the opportunity because my experience is back home. I have more than 10 years experience in accounting and payroll. So my question is, how would that the companies in the north support? Are they going to be supporting me if I should find a role there and apply? Are those still ready to support me so that I can? I've always loved to live outside of Winnipeg. I've always loved to be in small community where I can eventually go with my family. I've always loved that, right? So that's my first question. How does the employer support that? Are they going to look at my experience and know this guy has experience coming from Africa and did not have the experience that we need here, but I've done a postgraduate degree in advanced business management here for 1 year, and I can tell you that I've become quite familiar with the Canadian system. That's my first question. My second question is I'm looking at transition from now that I have a postgraduate work permit, I'm looking at transitioning to a PR and eventually live in the north. I'm not thinking of moving to the south or moving to any part of Canada. I want to stay in the north. I've been reading a lot about the north, and I know there's a good place to stay. So my question: do employers support, or do the municipalities in the north have a sort of program that will support people that would love to live there? Right? Do they have a kind of program that they will support people to settle, let me put that way, to settle there in those towns and eventually help grow the economies of those towns? Yeah, so these are my 2 questions. Thank you.
So I'm gonna also introduce Kunal, who's now here. He's our financial manager, and he's lived in Canada 12 years now.
Yeah.
So just to answer the first, and I'll let Kunal dive in here too, is if you move north, you will quickly see the opportunity, like especially if you have your spouse, and you both add something, and it doesn't matter even if you have one and the other is the caregiver of the kids, you'll quickly see the difference living in the north where the opportunities are there when you apply. Not that you won't get a kind of the part where and we're working on the screening out people of how you land and that part to show skill on a resume. And how do we do that, especially with newcomers, and making sure that your skill is brought out right away, and you're getting the opportunity of the interview and all that. So we're working on that. But if you're living in the north and you're here and you have a residence, it's completely different than the south.
Yes, and I would like definitely add in Glenn's comment on this. So, when my background is also accounting, so I would not say you will move to north and you will get the job in your line next day. But yes, if you continuously going for it and you going for your goal, there is enough employers who can judge you, can test you, they'll hire you at the lower level. But if you are progressing with your CPA accounting designation or any other designation, they will definitely help you and they will support your expenses as well. So specifically, you ask for the CPA, CPA in Canada, they need that 30-month experience under your belt, right? So I would say if you're planning to move in north, keep strong follow up with the existing openings, and also keep an eye on the new jobs, and start with the at least admin position where you're 1 foot ahead into the office. So at least you then they can check your work, they can see your work, they can see you where you are going, and definitely they help you to progress you towards your designation.
Thank you so much for the answer. There are lots of questions. We won't be able to get through all of them, but can they send me the questions they have so that I can send it to you, Glenn?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, perfect. One of the questions is, if I apply from the south, can companies in the north help for settlement when I'm hired and I have to move in the north?
If you mean, some companies will provide a moving allowance, I would assume, if that's what you mean by that question. That would
Yeah.
probably be just on a different for every business, I'm sure.
And I would answer it this way is, depending on their need, the industry need, like if we're talking laborers, normally that doesn't happen. But if if you're a power engineer and they need you, then
Then they will.
then they start negotiating, and every company is different in that sense. And that's why I don't want to talk on what the companies offer. That's that piece, but legit questions to ask when you're trying to get that job, because it is hard to move from the city to the north, and the financial burden it does, and we understand it. But those would be specific to industry when you're doing that. And I can't talk because each industry is different on specifics.
I can give you an example, I guess. When I was in Alberta and I was working for financial industry out there, and I was coming up here to relocate, looking for work to come back home. And I was paid to relocate from Alberta to Flin Flon from this financial industry because they needed somebody to fill that role, and there just wasn't anybody here locally to do so. So again, it depends. It depends on the role, the job, and the company, I suppose.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Eric Atuya. I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question. You're self-muted, Eric. Okay. Tariq, I'm going to try you. I'm going to allow your microphone. I guess they are not here. So are there any questions left here?
Eda?
Yes?
Yeah, there is a question in French.
Okay.
So, yeah, Philian is asking, so he or she is into mechanics, and they asking what is their chances in the process to follow. I mean, like to fit in.
And that was in the mechanics?
Yeah, mechanics.
Yeah, so I mean, any trade, mechanical is a big need. It could be the biggest need is, I would say, automotive in the north. Working in the car side. The other thing with industry is sometimes you don't need your red seal. Like in the south, everyone's saying they're hiring and you need a red seal. The difference in the north is you might be able to get into industry if you're a heavy duty mechanic with a level 2. And I'm not being specific because some companies are different, but it is they're looking for people, so they're bringing in people and they might help you finish your trade because then you're tied to them and then you can get to level 4 from level 2. And that's questions you would ask when you're applying to when they're saying we need millwrights or heavy duty. You would reply and say, I have my level 2 if it's a millwright or a heavy duty or whatever your trade is, and ask those questions. And it's completely different in the north where everyone in the south is looking for red seal. You could possibly finish your red seal in the north.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Glenn and Ellison, for joining us today. And thank you for all the participants for your excellent questions. We are at the end of our time, so we won't be able to take any more questions. I'm going to share my screen really quick. If you are not currently a Manitoba Start client, you can call our front desk, visit in person, or complete our online registration form that is on our website under For Newcomers tab, Register for Services. You can see your eligibility here and you can register online by clicking this button. By registering with Manitoba Start, you will connect with settlement services and have access to career services that can assist you with resume development, career planning, job search strategies, and interview skills. For a list of programs and services offered by Career Services, go under the Career Services tab of the website. As you can see, we offer many workshops and many resources here. Lastly, please take a look at our events page, events calendar. We have all our upcoming events listed here. And if you miss an event, you can always go to webinar recordings and see the recordings of the webinars.
Et si vous souhaitez être connecté à la communauté francophone pour obtenir du soutien à l'établissement ou à l'emploi, veuillez contacter EDA. J'espère que vous avez trouvé cela utile.
Don't forget that Manitoba Start is here to assist you by providing services such as personalized career coaching, developing your resume, or job search assistance to help you find sustainable employment. Please follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest events. So on behalf of Glenn and Ellison from Northern Manitoba Sector Council and the Manitoba Start team, thank you for attending and stay well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.